Welcome to Podfellas, where it's just regular guys talking about regular things. Dave, how are you?
What's up?
A lot is up. The Not the stock market, but the temperature here and the amount of money that people expect for tipping. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Is the sort of this tipping culture, and we've touched on this some other episodes around expectations, but this tipping thing's starting to get out of control. But outside of that, there's a lot of questions. What do you tip? When you tip? How you tip? Who do you tip? Those types of things. Um, it's almost around lunchtime here. So I thought about ordering something, but then if you go on some of the apps, there are a lot of fees associated. So I'll probably just go out. But what are your thoughts on, I mean, there's so many nuances here with tipping. What are your thoughts on, say, tipping in general, and then also where you land on, for example, if you go out to pick something up versus somebody bring it to your house? What are your thoughts? Give me some quick thoughts on some of that.
Well, my quick thought is if I'm in a restaurant, I'm usually a 20%er. That's what I try to tip for a standard meal.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're at a breakfast joint or something and it's a $5 meal, 20% doesn't seem right. I give more than. I mean, because that waitress is working on a much slimmer margin, or that waiter.
Mm-hmm.
But typically I'm a 20%er. Although you and I have discussed that you have to be careful, particularly at some of these nicer establishments. I know you've gotten burned on this, where you throw your 20% down without realizing they already put 18% gratuity.
Oh, yeah.
Now you've had this occur not that long ago. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And I won't get into too many details, but yes, it was a very generous tip. No wonder they were like, "Oh, come back anytime." And
Yeah,
thank you.
refilling your water glass like crazy.
Right. And yeah, it was a shock when I went home, and of course, a couple of scotches and some wine at the table. I wasn't thinking, and I'm reading. I'm just like, okay, it's fine.
That's a 40% tip you gave.
Yeah, yeah. So what are you going to do? You're going to go back? No, you just take that one and you just
That's where you've
learn
got
from
to
it.
eat it. Yeah, that's a learn. That is a there. Sometimes that's a learning lesson. You know,
Right.
that's a teaching moment.
Absolutely. But it was a nice place, and I look at things like that as okay, one off. You learn. Hopefully, that individual could use it, which I'm sure they could. It's fine. I get it. Where I have to draw the line on some of this stuff is not only the expectations, like I just referenced. Okay, I was thinking about doing some DoorDash or something. By the time I get done getting a sandwich, their fees, delivery fees, whatever fees, then I feel obligated to at least give something that looks halfway decent, because you want to make sure that it shows up. Um,
Yeah.
but this is where things start to get out of control with tipping. And this isn't a new subject. This is
Now,
something that people talk about and gripe about. And, dare I say I sound quote unquote boomer, type thing. But there are some lines. And you and I certainly aren't cheap individuals. The breakfast thing's a perfect example. If I'm out to breakfast and I have a $5, I think you said there's a place by you that has a $4 or $5 breakfast.
yeah, it's $4.99.
I'm probably throwing down, if I have a 10 in my pocket, I'm throwing down the 10 and I'm walking out the door.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to, like you said, a buck or something. Come on. I mean, so that sort of thing matters. But what are your thoughts on, say, you order something and you go pick it up? Let's say Chinese food. Every
Perfect
you get
example.
Chinese food is once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, depending on. We have a place; they're great,
Yeah.
and when they show up, I tip them pretty well because they're quick, they're friendly. Sometimes I'll do a full 20%. I think since COVID, I've started doing 20% on if someone shows up at my house. Again, depending on what I'm doing. I feel like if I'm ordering a large amount of Chinese food and they're driving and we live a
Yeah.
little bit further out, I'll probably do 20% because you get to know them, they know you.
Yeah.
It's always hot. They throw a couple egg rolls in, whatever. But
Yeah,
if
I'm
I
20% on delivery, 20% on pizza, anything they bring, hoagies. Yeah.
but if I go there,
See, that's different.
I don't know. I mean, it depends. Sometimes I might, sometimes I might not.
Well, what I like to do is throw, if I'm picking up, say I'm just picking up a pizza and the pizza's like $15, and all they're doing is handing it to me and I'm paying them, I'll take $1 and I like to put it in the tip jar.
Do they
I
see
don't know
you
what
do
this says about me. I want them to see me put it in, just to know that, hey, particularly if I pay with a credit card, I'll do that sometimes there. and I'll scratch out where it says tip
Right. And just put cash or
and
whatever.
just put cash or whatever. I don't want them to think I stiffed them, and but I want to make sure they see me do it. And I don't know why. That must say something about me. But I think that's fine, right? Throwing a buck in when you're picking it up. I don't think you have to.
I think so.
I don't think you have to put $3 in
No.
or something. You know what I mean? For a $15 pizza, it'd be 20%. I don't think I need to throw $3 in the tip jar when I'm driving there to get it.
No. But what about if you have a big party and you need 20 pizzas now, and you're going to pick them up? When can I get this? Get them in an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is. I might tip a little bit more in that scenario.
I'm definitely going to tip more then because I see that, I see what's going on there. I mean, that's a little different.
They might have to have one kid just focusing on that specific order.
Right.
Um,
But
yeah.
where's the line then? I mean, are you supposed to tip at Subway, Jersey Mike's? I don't know.
I have a hard time tipping it. I've done it. It depends on the scenario. Again, I think this is a theme across every one of these types of conversations. It depends. And there's a lot of factors. Depends on who it is, how they're acting, if you know them, if you've been in there a lot, if whatever. But if I'm dropping, Jersey Mike's, 2 giant subs, you're up at $50 at least.
Pretty quick. Yeah.
If I'm driving, I have a hard time putting another 10, another 20% on that just because they put it in a bag.
No, and I agree, and that's where it's a situational kind of a thing at that point. I feel like.
Right.
I mean, tipping, like what are you supposed to tip, and when are you supposed to tip, and what are the expectations on tips? I mean, you're not tipping at Burger King, but
I'm all out at Burger King, dude.
Yeah, well, you could tip there because you're getting a whole bag for $8. I mean, that's where you should probably tip, but you're not expected to. That's a little odd.
Right. No, you're exactly right. I think COVID was the quote unquote tipping point, if you will. See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
And so that it was like, oh my God, thank you for coming out and feeding my family. Here's $100 on a $40 order kind of thing.
Well, everyone was just being kind to each other because we were all afraid.
Yeah. And now that's stuck. It's kind of like it's kind of like the government. Once they have a tax, they're never going to get rid of the tax. It's just they'll just rename it, call it something else.
Yeah.
But there's this expectation now that no matter what customer-facing service, consumer-facing service, there is this expectation of some kind of gratuity. And there are many lines. And again, I say this word a lot, context, and it depends on who it is. If I walk into a pizza shop or some kind of restaurant takeout thing, and I see the girl, and I'm just going to say girl because it's Podfellas and we're just going to talk like this. And, if I see the girl behind the counter wrapping up there, see what I'm saying? I'm already starting to get siders. We said we were going to try to be a little bit inclusive, but this is what it is. I'm thinking about my experiences. There's a girl at the pizza shop down the street. She's always bagging up the salads. Oh, I'm definitely tipping her. How are you? Because there's like some activity and there's an actual exchange there. There's not like grunting and
well, there's a give and take.
There's a give and take. So absolutely there. But the person that just turns around, hands me something, barely says hi, and flips the screen around and wants 25%. It's already pre-coded for 25%.
It is. And I'm not down with that because you got to give me a little something for the transaction here. I mean, that's part of the tip is part of the service, right? You're giving me good service. I'm tipping you for good service. I'm not just tipping you. I mean, you might as well just call it a tax then. I'm not just going to tip you extra money just because you're allowing me to walk in and pick something up that you're handing me. But if you're like, hey, how are you? How's your day? All good. This and that. Okay, that gives me a little something more. I mean, whether that's right or not, I don't know, but that's how I feel about it. Do you need napkins? Do you need plates? Do you need forks?
Right.
Okay, you're trying a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
How about this? I went to a ball game, and I got there, and the usher saw me, wanted to see, the ticket, which now you have to pull up on your phone.
Right.
And he walked me down to my seats. I gave him $1.
Mm-hmm.
Are you supposed to? Is that expected?
Here's the way I've always done it with ball games. So if you go back to 20, 30 years ago, let's say you had less than average seats, and you would go to the usher. The usher knows who's showing up, who's not showing up, who's this and that. And you put a little extra underneath your $3 nosebleed seats, and
Yeah.
he might get you closer.
He might move you down.
He might move you down. I don't with the way things are nowadays and QR codes and all of that technology, you're finding less of that. I also thought that the wiping of a seat, especially during rain or something like that, absolutely makes sense. I always typically tip an usher, and I usually go $1 a seat.
Yeah.
That's
If
what I
there's
do.
4 of us, I'm giving him a $5 bill.
I'm giving five. Yeah, just exactly.
But if there's 2 of us, he's getting $2 or one, whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's kind of what I've always been too. And you think about it, this usher, a lot of times they're a retired guy or something.
Sure.
If that guy helps 40 people to their seat, and there's at least 2 people each time, made $80. That's not nothing.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, this is funny too. And when you said you give a 5 or whatever, sometimes tipping is just convenient for you. Meaning, if you have this kind of unwritten rule of $1 a seat, there's 4, here's 5. I don't want to deal with $1. Same thing if the guy coming around with the beers, right? Beers are pretty expensive. Let's say beers are $12 each. You buy 3 beers, you give the guy $40, keep the change, because I don't want to deal with passing it over 12 fans to get it.
Yeah,
So a lot of times tipping becomes more of a convenient for the tipper than it is the actual person
it
receiving
does.
it, because it's more like, I don't want to deal with it.
You're right.
So that's why I always tell my kids, if you're going to pay cash, make sure you have different denominations of cash, because then you can tip and you're not stuck with like a 50 on a $35 thing. You're getting into some gray area. It's like,
Well, and it gets uncomfortable too because
right,
you give cash to whoever,
right.
and they say to you,
Do you
"Do you
need
need
change?
change?" Well, now, yeah, I want some change. Or you're like, no, keep it all. That's why I like to hand cash that's pretty close to what I'm wanting to tip, and I say just keep it.
I agree. And then what I'll also do is, if it's something a little bit, if the spread is a little bit higher than I'd like, yeah, just give me 5 back, or give me, and keep 10 and give me 5. It depends on what that situation looks like. Because
Yeah,
the other thing too is, if you go back to that place all the time, it's different than if you're a one-off, if it's the holidays
yeah,
and those types of things. The usher is interesting, because I know for a while some stadiums, because they are cashless now, especially, but even early on, you don't want to tip, or you don't have to tip.
yeah.
But I still think that there's an expectation of that in those types of scenarios. Um, and the ushers are, if you go to them saying, hey, this guy's being a jerk in this
Yeah.
section, they're there to kind of police their section. There's some of that going on.
And just to help you find a seat, like sometimes if you're in a different section, you're not really sure, particularly if you're in a ballpark you're not familiar with.
Right.
Those guys are very valuable then. And they know exactly where to take you, and they walk you down. That's worth a couple bucks. It just is.
Sure. Sure.
Hey, I had this happen to me 2 weeks ago. Took the family. We went out and got some dinner. Not an expensive place, little Italian place. We got pizza. I think we got calzone, some soup, whatever, salads. The bill was $62
Mm-hmm.
because we didn't have drinks or anything. And the waitress comes, and she wasn't very nice, by the way. The waitress the whole time was like annoyed with us, and we had to ask every time we wanted something. Hey, we don't have forks. Hey, we don't have dressing. Fine, So our bill came. It was $62. I had $100 bill. I put it down. She picked it up and says to me, "Do you need change?"
That's
No, I'm giving you a $38 tip, 38% tip. I said, yeah, I'd like change. Now, I had a problem with that. I still gave her a 20% tip, but I didn't want to, because not only did she not do a great job, but then she was trying to snake me at the end.
the audacity.
In front of my family, I'm going to say, oh, no, keep it. I was like, no, I'm thinking you're going to, on a $60 bill, you're going to get $15 or $16. That's like 22%, right?
Right.
She's trying to take it all. Made me mad.
Yeah, that right there. But I will say, I've never stiffed anyone on a tip, and I might complain a bunch,
Me either.
but I will most certainly give 20%, just because,
Yeah.
everyone's having people have bad days, etc.
You don't know what they're going through. Right, exactly.
But at the minimum, I'm giving 20%. Usually it's in the 22 to 25%, depending on the situation.
Sometimes mine's more because I'm terrible at math.
Well, yeah, that's true.
You know,
Maybe that woman knew that you were terrible at math.
yeah, she probably thought this guy, he don't know.
Mm-mm.
Took one look at
Probably,
me.
it's probably what happened.
The
Knowing
guy with
that.
the fresh spaghetti stain on his shirt, he's not going to know.
Exactly.
No.
Um,
What about bartenders? Now,
this is interesting here.
are you supposed to tip? Are you supposed to tip on every drink? Are you supposed to wait, tip beforehand? Do you do the tip early? What do you do with that? And I know you've had to have some thoughts on this as a
Sure.
guy who's been in a bar once or twice.
Yeah, a couple of times. I've even bartended.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, lots of different scenarios. There's a place up the street from here. I will go in, put an order in, have a drink or two, take and go. And that typically is on like one tab. So I'll just treat that as say like, hey, this is a bill and I'm just happen to take my food to go, but I'm sitting here and having a couple of drinks while, then I go home and it's like, oh, they were packed. It took me forever. But it's a thing. You got to sit down and have a couple of drinks while you're waiting for the dinner pickup. I will treat that as just sort of like probably a 25% at least because it's a bar and
Yeah.
at least. And if I know them, maybe a little bit more. If I'm just sitting down there to have some beers and I know I'm going to be there a while and it's quiet and it's nothing, I'll put all my money there and I will probably most certainly tip at the end of that if I know I'm going to be there a while. If I'm in a bar, if I'm in a club, which has been years since I've been in a club, and you're sort of sitting at the end of the bar trying to get attention, I typically will tip a little bit more on each transaction to make sure that they see you and come back. And if I have a situation where I can get there earlier, I'll say, hey, look, here's X dollars. We're going to be here all night. Make sure I'm going to hook you up at the end of this as well. But here's a nice
Yeah.
upfront
Yeah. Okay.
sort of thing, like,
Make sure they see you.
like a tip retainer, if you will, right? And my
Yeah.
cousin in Vegas taught me that early on. He's like, look, we're the kind of guys that they're going to go to the good looking girls at the end of the bar. They're not going to come to, us first. So if you want them to come to at least consider us, you better tip them up front first and
You
say,
better have something right.
so there's some strategies
You
to
got to be
tipping.
proactive on your tipping then.
Right. Preemptive tipping, if you will.
Yeah, preemptive tip. That's a very good way to think about that. I think that's good. Um, and and some people will go above and beyond on that
Mm-hmm.
to really get good service. Maybe get a stronger drink, maybe a better drink.
Yeah.
And I know you have a buddy who's famous for this.
This is funny. Guy and I won't say names and I won't say companies, but this guy's hilarious. It reminds me of you. Um, Big personality, tall guy, from Boston, and we've done a lot of business and some things together. He was a sales guy, and you'd run into events in New York and Chicago and Texas and different places. And I remember in Philly one time, we wrapped up a day's worth of meetings, and of course, you're going to have a cocktail with him because if you don't, he's good. You have to because
Yeah.
he's going to get offended. So I remember him being at the bar, and he himself on the weekends was a bartender and did some things on the side. He had one drink that was a little bit less than his liking, a lot of fruit. It was a tonic, probably
Yeah.
Tito's and tonic or something. A lot of fruit,
A lot of time.
tonic. And he says, my guy, he goes, come here. And he threw down like $20. He goes, pretend you're trying to kill me. No fruit, just ice and vodka. He goes, wave the tonic gun over it if you want, but pretend you're trying to kill me. And I thought it was hilarious. And, he tipped the guy $20 on, whatever drink.
Yeah.
Of course, he tipped him more. But it depends. And there's that. And the kid laughed. And then that's the other thing, too, right? We talked about at the beginning here. There's a little bit of a transaction. If
A little rapport, you got a rapport going.
If you laugh at my dad jokes, if you look me in the eye, if you throw a few extra hot sauce packets in there or some red pepper flakes or an extra fork or whatever it is, that's a part of the whole transaction, right?
Yeah,
That's
have a little conversation. Now, I understand if you're packed busy,
right.
But if you have a little time, let's have a little, hey, how you doing? It doesn't have to be much.
Right.
But more than what do you want and sliding it in front of you.
Right.
And that's, you're paying for that service, I think, right?
Right.
Yeah. We had an interesting thing happened at my church over Christmas. It was Christmas Eve. We went to Christmas Eve service. And when they were about ready to start, the pastor of our church said, hey, I know normally we don't do, pass the baskets but we're going to do that now, and we're not putting anything for the church. We just ordered a pizza,
Oh,
and the DoorDash guy is going to bring it here, and whatever you give, we're going to bless this guy with.
whoa, that's kind of cool.
So, and I've never seen this done before. So we take the offering, and everyone throws money. I threw $20, and we all threw money and whatever. And it's Christmas Eve. It's it's like 9 o'clock at night. This guy probably doesn't want to be working on Christmas Eve.
Right.
So we're sitting there, and then he gets a thing in his ear that says, "Okay, he's here." And they said, "Oh, right in there." Now the guy delivers this pizza to this church, right?
During the service?
During service.
Oh,
We're
wow.
packed right in it. And he ordered at the beginning before, so about halfway through, the guy showed up, and he opened up, and he goes, and he's got the microphone. Like, "Hey, get right down here in front." And and it was a DoorDash person that was doing the pizza. He's bringing the pizza down, and he's looking around. He's confused. It was great. And he's looking around thinking he's being punked. You think whatever. He's like, no, come down here. I haven't had a chance to eat, because we've been doing services all day. And the guy walks up and he hands it to him. And he goes, "Okay." And that was, $17 or whatever. He goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, well, here's your 17 plus of this." And he gave him an envelope. And they had already counted it. And they told me here's $1,850. The guy was probably in his late 30s. Who knows why he's working Christmas Eve, but he probably needs it, right?
Yeah.
He's like tearing up. He goes, "Is this a joke?" But he wasn't sure. He thought he was being punked.
Right.
And he goes, "No, our congregation just wanted to bless someone with a great Christmas, Now, you don't know. Now, the cynical person might say, "Oh, yeah, you probably went out and bought crack," right? Or are you relying on the fact that you did something nice for a guy?
Right.
Who knows what he might be dealing with, taking care of his mom, taking care of kids. He's got this, he got that going on. And that 1850, wow, what a blessing that night it would be. And that's the way I like to think about it. But it was kind of a unique thing, something I've never seen done before. And I thought it was brilliant.
I think it like that too, David. And maybe it was, maybe his kid wanted a bike that was $500 and he just didn't have the money. Anything like that. That's pretty cool. I've never heard anything like that.
I told people about that. I was surprised how many people were divided on that. Some people told me they thought it was the coolest thing ever. Other people said, "Oh, well, that's a waste of money. You give all that money to one guy. I mean, who knows what he's going to do with it?" I was like, "Yeah, who knows?" But
that's not me to judge.
He's out working Christmas Eve. It was snowy and cold out. I'd like to think that person, he really had a great Christmas. I like to think. Absolutely. And that was a cool thing. And I've never been a part of anything like that. And I hope to be a part of something like that again because it was pretty neat.
Now, Dave, just a word of caution because I know how you are. That only works for the pastor. You can't do that yourself, and you can't set that up, and you can't be the DoorDash guy. You can't.
I would just take a cut.
You would just take a cut.
Yeah, I think that would be cool, right?
Yeah, I could see you calling in the order, having the collection, going out the side door.
Yeah.
Hey.
And I said, I'll pay him in the parking lot. Trust me, people.
Yeah.
You can trust me.
One thing I have to be cautious of and to not do this, and I don't know if you do wine in your church, but being Catholic and going up, I should probably not go up to the priest and hand him $20 and "Father, pretend you're trying to kill me."
No.
And just give me the whole chalice of wine.
No, I would say no. Does your church still do one chalice, or do you have little ones now because of COVID?
We do little. They have various lanes, and they don't do the one chalice. They have different chalices. But I stopped that long ago because it's just I had having been an older boy. I mean, it's crackhead wine to begin with, and it's sitting in a jug out there for months at a time. It's horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a part of that. Now at our church, they do these little individual ones.
Little shot glasses.
Well, you know what? They're interesting. This came out during COVID. There's a little foil pack you pull open.
Oh wow!
And that's where your bread is. And then the second foil pack under it is the juice. And that became a huge business right after COVID. When people want to do that, and they still sell them now.
It's like a religious Lunchable.
It's exactly what it looks like. That's a perfect example for it. Yeah, and
I like it.
And that's what we still. I don't know if we're still using them just because they bought so many, or what. But they'll last forever, though.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I've never heard of that.
No, I had never seen. It was right after COVID they started it, because for a while you weren't allowed to do communion. You weren't allowed
Right,
to get, you know what I mean?
right,
And
right.
then as things loosened up, that's what they started doing.
Okay.
Although it has nothing to do with tipping, so we got off task a little, but
Well, a
it's
little
okay.
bit, but
That's what happens in a typical Podfellas conversation.
absolutely. So the back to the DoorDash pizza. That's a cool story. That's really cool. Pizza in general, I think everyone's used to tipping, delivery, Chinese food, those types of things. But what's interesting now is that there are so many different ways to have products come to your house. I've seen this too, where people tip their delivery drivers. Now, I'd be broke because we have Amazon stop here like 2 or 3 times a day.
Oh man,
So I don't even now at Christmas if I happen to get the person, but a lot of times it's not the same person. A lot of times you don't know the individual dropping off. I've seen people leave snacks and do different things. It becomes tough because you want to take care of everyone, especially around the holidays, but then you don't want to set a precedent and say, okay, well, every time you show up at my door, you're going to get
no, right?
because now it doesn't become logical. Now I'll tip guys that help carry a fridge into the house, and a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, we can't take that, sir." And I'll say, "Well, who's going to know?" But then they don't know. Maybe that's a
You're what they might be thinking they're getting set up to see if they'll do it.
yeah. What is it, Admiral Akbar? It's a trap.
It's
Is
a
that
trap.
is
I
that
remember when we were at Sandals one time, I tried to tip the person and he wouldn't take it. And I said the same thing. He goes, "No, you don't understand. They'll send people here
just
just
to
to see
see?
if we'll take it.
Yeah,
He goes, this is a good job and we don't want to lose it." I was like, "Oh, okay."
yeah, yeah. That's all the sort of all-inclusive
Yeah,
places.
those all inclusive places.
Right.
Now, when I was a kid, I remember we would tip our newspaper boy Christmas time,
Hmm.
or in the milk, like back in the day when people used to bring milk to your house. I
Right.
guess at Christmas you're supposed to put an envelope in. But I've heard of people, and we've not done this, and I'm wondering if I'm supposed to. Maybe you know, tipping your garbage man at Christmas time.
Oh, all right.
Have you
This is
done this? Because I don't know. This is kind of a new thing to me that I'm. If so, I haven't been doing it.
all right. So we're already in on 30 minutes on the I think we should go a little bit longer because this is one of those things where there's a lot of nuances. So, and I'm sure there's going to be someone here listening that works for one of the larger corporate waste collection
Yeah,
um, companies. When I grew up, there were city workers that picked up our trash. My dad knew them. He would tip them at Christmas. He would
yeah.
leave out gloves for them. He would leave out a case of Coke for them, waters, Gatorades.
Coca Cola, right?
Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola,
I
right?
just saying. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not judging.
right. So I knew you wouldn't let that slide. But now I just heard the guy come. You have to have your trash in such a way that they won't even get out. They have the arm coming. I had a situation where my recycling blew over. The guy just drove by because he couldn't put the arm. The can itself blew over. He couldn't get out, straighten up the can and do it. He just ignored it.
Oh,
So when it comes to Christmas time, and he'll put like he'll put a card on the thing. So he gets out of his cart truck to put a thing like, "Hey, Merry Christmas." He wants you to give him something. I typically don't with the current way there is trash collection. Old school,
yeah,
come hanging off the back of the truck. Yeah,
yeah. Well, the mechanical arm sort of changed it a little.
especially when there are so many restrictions on what I can put out, number of bags. I have to buy my own trash can. It can only be a certain size, a certain color, a certain this, a certain
Yeah.
that. And yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that say something about that. But that's my thoughts. What do you
Well,
think?
that's what I was asking because I don't know. Now I remember as a kid we had a one steel trash can. I just have to lug it down there.
Mhm.
When I was a kid, it didn't have wheels. And the can was like and the can was all beat up because I always used the lid like a Captain America shield.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
thought that was fun. And yeah, Christmas time we would put uh, an envelope full of cash on it and tape it to it. And that was what we did. And we knew the guy. And if we forgot to put it out that morning, he'd walk up our driveway and get it and drag it down. Like he
Right,
wouldn't be like, well, screw them. So that
right.
was different. But now it's lined up down my street and the guy comes with the thing and just dumps them in. So I haven't been given money to that. And I don't. Plus, I mean, do they even see it, or will it get tossed in the back by the mechanical arm? So I
Well,
don't know
that's
the rules on that. And I was just wondering if you had any insight. And it seems that you're like I am. You don't really know.
I've talked to many people in my neighborhood and other neighborhoods, and they feel the same way.
Okay.
And so that's one of those that, again, it comes down to the situation, um, and maybe how much personal effort is involved in it.
Yeah, I would say that's interesting then part.
Right.
Like you would tip anybody for a service, right? But now with everything being delivered all the time, I mean, we have Amazon every day to our house. You couldn't tip them all the time, but
No,
there
you
was
go broke.
a time like when you would tip your mailman
Mhm,
back in the day. I
mhm.
don't know that anyone does that anymore either.
No, my mail carrier, she doesn't get out of the truck, and then also has destroyed multiple mailboxes by like ripping it off or hitting it and just rolling.
Running over it,
Her mirror is just, and she's nice, hey, but half the time my mail smells like smoke because she's
chain
smoking
smoking in there.
and smoke in the car. I don't know. It's
Yeah. Well, again, things maybe you used to tip for that you don't now. I know my parents would say, and even when I was real little, the milk guy would come to your house and put it in those little milk boxes outside your little insulated
yeah,
milk boxes,
sure.
uh, and then they would collect at the end of the month or whatever,
Mhm.
and you would throw the money in and then put another thing in there. It was a tip for the milkman.
Right.
But things have changed so much now, and things are automated and whatever that those sort of services are really not a thing anymore.
No, they aren't. And that's the other thing. The automation, technology, all of these things play a factor in, I think, if there's more friction in the service, meaning if there's more interaction, if there's some kind of communication or something that's above and beyond you just turning around or you grunting at me or me coming in and picking something up, better chance, the more of a chance you're going to get a tip. Back to Amazon real quick. I've been out in my yard, working in the yard. The Amazon guy comes up the street or comes up the driveway. Hey, you need a Gatorade. Do you need a Coke? Do you need this? And because
Yeah.
the fridge is right there, he's like, oh yeah, thanks. And I'll throw him that. I think that's something nice to do because if I'm already out there,
Yeah, right.
um, I would do that for anyone sort of working on the house too. I had some projects done here, I had a patio put in. I bought the guys lunch. It was an expensive patio, so I wasn't going to tip 20%. But I
No.
but I bought the guys lunch every day when they were here and brought donuts. And I think that's kind of a thing to do as well.
Yeah, I think that's a definite social nicety that you just do.
Right. Plus, I wanted them to stay on the job so I can keep an eye on them, and they weren't like leaving the job and not coming back. So
Right,
hey,
exactly.
I
If
want
you want to get it done,
you better eat here. So
yeah, come here for lunch, right? Now I've one tipping thing we didn't discuss, and I think any of our listeners might want to know this because this is something I was not familiar about, and it was tipping on somebody running an office pool.
oh, okay, this is a good one.
You know, like say you're doing an NCAA tournament, right? I wasn't aware of this until a lot later. I was older when I was told you're supposed to give whoever created and runs the league or whatever 10% tip. Is that correct?
Yes, but I've always done it this way. If it's an office pool and Joe from accounting is running it, and it's $10 a block and 100 blocks, and you win, and he's not getting $100. He's not getting 10%. It's
Okay.
just not in that context. However, if I go down to my local bar and the stakes might be a little higher, and I'm sure that that bar owner is paying all the taxes he should be paying, right?
Of course.
In the winter, et cetera. But just so that stress and that burden on that individual to make sure that he's collecting and he's doing everything, 10% is the norm there, and I've done that.
Right. So if you win if there's 50 people in a NCAA basketball tournament poll or something, and that guy's collected the money, he's run the tournament, he's
Right.
got the place for it, and it's say the payout's $2,000,
Mhm.
you're giving that guy $200.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Okay, that's good to know.
And I think also if you do win an office pool, right, wouldn't hurt you to bring in some donuts.
Absolutely. If you win, I think you need to buy peanut or pizza. I think you need to
Yeah,
buy
I think
pizza
so.
or hoagies. I think if you just get a box of donuts, you might get called out. You might be
You
like,
might.
hey, A little something for the effort. We know how much you won.
You won $1,000. Thanks for the $12 worth of donuts.
Yeah, see, yeah, right. That now you're setting yourself up as you're trying to do something nice, but it's not quite enough. You're better off not doing anything than doing a
Exactly.
little bit, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
But yeah,
Well,
the whole gambling thing is interesting, and because you also, a lot of bigger these bigger gambling pots and at the bar, at the American Legion, at the vets, whatever, they get to be a little up there, and there's a lot of, there's a exposure there for whoever's trying to run that. And
yeah.
I think it's just something you do in that situation. Um, but
Now, what about if you're at a casino
Mhm.
and you're playing blackjack?
Okay.
You're supposed to tip your dealer as you win. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, and how much are you supposed to tip? Are you supposed to only tip if you win? Are you supposed to tip even if you lost $150 at the table?
Well, I'm only tipping if I win because they just, because this guy is supposed to help me out. In fact, here's something interesting is that, and I didn't know you could do this again, and I don't know if it's frowned upon now, but back in the day, my cousin who worked in the industry, he's the same one that the preemptive tipping, he sort of taught me that, and that
Yeah.
was a thing. He would say, "This chip, I'm playing this card. I'm going to play two hands. This is your hand over here," and he would.
Oh,
And then if it would win, then he would, and it was just sort of this thing like you're building rapport. And of course, the guy can't do anything about it, but it does sort of put some skin in the game and
yeah.
provide something that is a little bit more like, hey, I'm going to take care of you, don't worry, kind of
Yeah.
thing. But if I'm getting crushed, there's no way I'm going to tip on
No.
that.
Well, see, and the thing is, the first couple times I ever went into a casino, I didn't know this.
Right.
And someone told me, hey, you just walked away with $180. You got to throw a couple of
Oh,
couple of
absolutely.
chips to the dealer. I said, oh, really? They're like, yeah. I said, how much? They said, you won $180, throw them $20.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right.
oh. So I didn't really know. Again, these are unwritten things that you don't know about because it doesn't say on the wall, be sure to tip your dealer.
No. It also depends on the game you're playing, right? If you're playing, say, roulette, which is a fast-paced game that goes. If I hit a 35-1 whatever number and I hit, let's say, $350 on a $10, I'm going to throw something to that right in that next spin, before that next spin.
Just
But if
toss
I'm
it to them. Okay, yeah.
But if I'm sitting down, very much like if I'm sitting down when I'm drinking, that if I'm going to be there a while, I'm probably not going to tip on every beer or everything. I'm going to say,
No.
hey, I'm going to get you. And they're going to know that because I'm going
When
to be
you're
there a
sitting there
while.
grinding it out, then, right.
But if I'm sitting at a blackjack table and it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, I'll take a look at where I am at the end. But they're always going to get something, I would assume. I'm not going to completely walk away. Probably I don't know, if I lost $1,000, it'd be tough to throw money at them. But again, you got to read the coverage and look at the context of all that. But that's another one, absolutely. That's interesting. And even the person that brings you your drinks. A lot of casinos had stopped this, but
Yeah.
drinks are quote unquote free.
Yeah.
Here's another interesting thing. Let's say, for instance, you're getting make it easy, Miller Lite or a beer, whatever. And those beers are typically $5 a piece, but you're getting them free because you're gambling.
Right.
The person brings them over, and you're not going to tip them $10, obviously,
No.
because that's the price of the beer. What do you tip? Do you tip half? Do you tip $5? I mean, you want to keep
Do you
coming.
tip them every time they come by, or do you tip them every other time, or do you wait and tip them when you're about done?
I think on that you have to tip every time because they're going to make their rounds and they're going to remember you and swing by. You don't want to
That's
wait
true. Yeah, that's a good
because
point.
then they might come back around. And I
They
think
might
there's
come back a little more.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And again, depending on the situation, you could communicate that, but I think there's sort of this unwritten rule and around some of that. But a lot of casinos now, and again, I'm not a big casino guy, and I haven't been to Vegas in years. But the local casinos, which everyone seems to have now, every state, I think is a little bit different. And I don't know if they even give drinks. I don't know how that works anymore. I can't remember. I think maybe
It's
one
been
or
a
two
while
times.
since I've been in one, so I'm not sure if they're giving you drinks like they used to, because they want you to get hammered and stay there. So it behooves them to give away a $5 beer if you're going to lose at the poker table, which you're going to if you stay there long enough, or a blackjack table, or whatever. You're going to lose. The house always wins. It's just wired to win.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting. Well, see, these are some unwritten rules. A lot of things that we discussed we didn't know about, and maybe you don't know about either. Maybe this will help. It certainly helped me because some of this stuff I don't know.
I know, and a lot of times you don't know until you get into a situation, a unique situation. But I think most people, I would say, agree with us when it comes to certain types of establishments and tipping around, say, the guy from Subway versus the local pizza shop.
The gratuity involved, sure. I mean, that becomes, and a personal connection, that makes it a little different. And what's involved, too. For instance, I mean, you can make the argument, when you go to Subway, that person is making the entire sandwich a lot of times and then going over and cashing you out. They're technically maybe doing more than the person who just hands you the pizza when you get there.
True.
But I'm still not as inclined to give them as much as I am the local pizza shop, just because I feel like I know them better.
Exactly, and there's that corporate component to it.
Very much, right. That's true too.
Kind of this, it removes the personal approach to it.
Pete's Pizza downtown, which is run by a guy whose kids go to school with your kids, you're going to be more friendly to them than Jimmy John's, because I guess that does make sense.
Right.
Dave, I think we've covered a lot of tipping ground here.
I think so, and I think we could probably go on like this forever. So I think this is one of those, again, we didn't mention it before, but after every podcast, we're going to try to put together a poll, and I think that this one might have a lot of different nuances to it. So it'd be interesting to hear what people say. You can leave comments. You can like us, share us, all these kinds of things. But this is the kind of subject matter we're looking for. So if you would like to come on to Podfellas, we've had a lot of interest. We have some guests lined up. You'll start seeing that in subsequent episodes. But for now, you're stuck with Dave. You're stuck with myself here. And as always, thanks for listening. And until next time.
We appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for listening to Podfellas. If you are interested in becoming a Podfella, visit our site, podfellas.com, and fill out the request form.